Hi and welcome back to the cottage. Today we are getting ready for the back to school season by discussing some decluttering and organizing projects that we can tackle in preparation. By the time that this video is live on YouTube, it will be the month of August, which I can barely wrap my head around. It doesn't seem possible that we're already at the end of summer yet. Here we are, and if you're like me, you're kind of in denial a little bit, but yet you know you need to do a little bit of preparing. And so I thought it might be interesting to some of you to see some of the different decluttering and organizing projects that I'm going to be tackling here in our home to help us to ease that transition. Maybe they can be beneficial for you as well. So this video is for any parent that is sending kids back to school, homeschooling parents, or also for adults who are heading back to the classroom, whether that's in a teaching role or as a student themselves. But if you are out of that season of life, maybe your kids are grown, maybe you have your degree, you're not going back to school, please don't click out of this video assuming that it's not for you, because many of the tips, techniques I'm going to be talking about can relate to home life as well. And so I think you can find value here also. So let's dive into the list. The first thing I want to talk about is planners and calendars. Now, we all have our own systems of how we like to keep our life in check. Around this time of year, schools in our area send out calendars for specific dates of things that are going to be happening. So days that we will not be having school because of holidays, or days that there are special activities, maybe a school musical or a school-wide field trip, those types of things. And what I like to do before school even starts is to go through on my digital calendar, which is where I like to keep everything in order, and put in those specific things. And so I have them blocked off and I know ahead of time what is happening. Also included in that back to school packet that is mailed out is usually a school supply list or a link to a list online that we can access to see what specific school supplies each child will need for their various classes. It has been my experience that the younger grades tend to need a lot more supplies than the older children. However, the older kids' supplies are usually a little bit more expensive. So the technique that I like to use in this decluttering and organizing project is to really save the supplies that we have gotten at the end of each school year, keep them throughout the summer, and then in the month of August, take everything out and really start to look through to see what we have available and actually shop our school supplies at home first. And usually this process will allow me to have very few things I need to pick up at the store. It's usually something like a new calculator or maybe a ruler that's broken. Most every year we need to buy some new pencils and things like that, but it's usually very, very affordable and it's not super stressful. As part of this process, I do a couple of mini declutter organizing projects that involve the school supplies themselves. The first one is to test out any markers or pens and just making sure that they have plenty of ink in them. I also like to sharpen all of the colored pencils and the pencils and have those all ready to go. And another thing that I like to do, I just started doing this about 2 years ago, is to take those notebooks that, your kids come home with, partially used notebooks, but sometimes the binding, the spirals on them, if you have the spiral bound ones, are really kind of crunched up and they're not in very good shape. So I like to take those notebooks and actually rip out or cut out the pages and then put that extra loose paper into a binder. Another little check that I like to do before school starts is to take all of the backpacks and give them a good wash in the washing machine, make sure there's not any rips or holes, and that the zippers are working properly. If you need to replace a backpack, now is a really good time to do it because there's generally some sales and also there's a wide variety of options available. We have had backpacks break in mid-year and it was really difficult to find the style or type that my kids wanted. So this is a good time of year to do that project. And then you can simply take whatever school supplies that they need, set them right into the backpack, zip that backpack up and set it somewhere so it's ready for that first day of school or that back to school night. And usually once all of the supplies have been divvied out amongst the different kids, there are still some left over that I can keep at home and organize for homework assignments and things like that. But I did mention in a previous video that I will be homeschooling our daughters this coming school year. Our sons are going to continue going to their respective schools, so we'll have 2 at the public high school this year, and our youngest son will be continuing to go to the elementary middle school that he has been going to, which is a private Christian school that is supported by our church. So our daughters, some of you asked why I'm going to be homeschooling them. They really did well at this private school, but they need a little bit more one-on-one attention, a little bit more direction to help them to become more independent learners. This is something that we thought and prayed about a lot and decided to go forward with it on a year-by-year basis. And so this is the pilot year. I'm really excited, maybe a little bit nervous, but I do think it will be a positive experience for our daughters. And so I did some organizing and created an entire drawer of school supplies, everything that they might need, rulers and pencils and markers and colored pencils. Everything is all available to them in this easy access spot where they can just grab what they need for their different homeschool projects. Another really common decluttering and organizing back to school project is to go through kids' clothes and shoes. Now, I'm not sure about your kids, but mine tend to grow like weeds in the summertime. I think it's maybe the extra sleep that they get or all the fresh air. Whatever it is, it always seems like the going into the fall season is when I see that they have outgrown the most amount of clothes. And so this time of year, just like 3 other times a year, I like to do this quarterly, I go through their dressers and their closets and I take stock of what they have in them and what still fits, what might have holes, what might need to be replaced. Now, if you are like my family was when I was growing up, you might also enjoy doing a little bit of back to school shopping for clothes and get a few new outfits. I know I really enjoyed that as a kid. And I would encourage you, if that is something that you do as a tradition at your house, to declutter a few outfits if you know you're going to be buying a few new ones for the school season, just to kind of keep things in check to make sure that you're not overstuffing their drawers or their closets. In terms of shoes, the same type of thing applies. Go through their shoes, see which ones have gotten a little bit beat up over the summer months, might need replacing. Do some decluttering of shoes that kids no longer fit into, or maybe they just don't like anymore. Make room for any new shoes that you might be buying, and make sure that everything has a place to live. I've said many times that this shoe organizing system that we have in our garage as sort of a little mini mudroom has been a lifesaver, because everybody knows that their shoes go in a specific spot and they can find them easily, put them away easily. It really creates a lot less hassle. Okay, now we're moving into some of the more obscure decluttering and organizing projects on the list, but still things that I think are important to at least think about before the school year starts. The first is to take inventory of water bottles. Go through and find the water bottles and sippy cups that your kids actually like to use and that you like for them to use, and consider getting rid of the rest of them. And then find a spot in your home that is sort of the spot where those water bottles live when they're not in use. For us, that's a basket right next to the fridge in our kitchen, and this is just where we know that the bottles belong there at the end of the day. It also makes it really handy if a child is going to a sporting event, maybe practice after school, or if they are going on a field trip during that day, they can grab their water bottle and use it throughout the day and then bring it back there at night. And if we're talking about hydration, we may as well also talk about nutrition. This is another area that I'd like to focus on before the school year begins to get things in order. One way I do that is by making sure that our snack drawer is fully stocked with healthy items that the kids can grab, whether that be for breakfast time if we're running a little late in the morning, or whether that be right after school if they need a quick snack before they start their homework or before they do their after school activities. Another way that I like to be organized in the food department if I'm feeling extra ambitious is to do some meal prepping. Now this can be as simple as putting together some breakfast burritos and having them in the freezer for a quick breakfast, or making up some energy bites, protein balls for sporting activities, for a snack. Or it can be a little bit more ambitious, a little bit more prepared by actually creating entire meals for the family and having them set aside in the freezer for those nights when the activities go extra long, maybe right up to dinner or even a little bit past what would be a typical dinner time. Really helps me to avoid the temptation of wanting to go through a drive-through or throw together a meal that might not be as healthy. And the last two decluttering and organizing projects on my back to school prep list involve electronics. The first is to find a dedicated charging area for any electronics that your child or you may need. That for us is Chromebooks. We have 3 of our kids that will be bringing home Chromebooks every single night, and we need to make sure that they have a spot accessible for them to plug in every single night. We also have a charging station for phones. Only our oldest son at this point has his own phone, our other kids do not, but having this spot for phones or for iPads, maybe the girls and I might use during homeschool, it's just great to have this area set aside. So we will be utilizing this. If you have something that you need to charge on a regular basis, I definitely encourage you to find a charging station for your family before the school year begins. And the final project I want to talk about today is the all-encompassing digital clutter. This isn't something that's talked about a lot in regards to back to school, but I have found this to be the perfect time of year to tackle this specific area. So your email inbox, if you are going outside of your home for any type of schooling, whether that's for yourself or for your kids, there's going to be a lot of email communication starting up here in the fall from different teachers. And so making sure that your inbox is nice and organized and you have folders maybe for each child where you can put their individual teachers' emails that you have, correspondence back and forth, and making sure too that any emails that are coming from your schools are going in the right place. I have had on occasion some different emails going into the spam folder, for example, and I want to make sure that any communication that I have is coming directly to my inbox, and then I can put them in these individual folders. So that is the first part of this. The second part is to go through your phones or your cameras and delete some pictures. Maybe organize some pictures on a separate drive where you can have them permanently stored. But going through that camera app on your phone or your digital memory cards and deleting some of those pictures that you took last year, maybe last year's school events, to make room for lots of new memories that are going to be happening this school year. The school year is a time when I know personally I take a lot of pictures, so I want to make sure that I have the space to capture them all. And that is my list of decluttering and organizing projects that I'm personally going to be tackling before the 2023-24 school year approaches. If I can get these things done at the beginning of August, I know that I'm going to be so much more relaxed for the rest of the summer and enjoy it just a little bit more. So I hope that this will give you some inspiration, maybe some motivation to tackle some back to school projects of your own at your home. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope that you'll stop by the cottage again really soon.